feature, Rebecca Patrascu. She's the author of the chapbook entitled Before Noon, which was published by Finishing Line Press. Rebecca's poetry and reviews have appeared in many publications, including the American Poetry Journal, Bracken Magazine, Pinch, Prairie Schooner, Colorado Review, and Valparaiso Review, and they're forthcoming in Nine Muses and Pigeonholes magazine. Rebecca has an MFA from Pacific University in Oregon and is a past winner of the Pinch Poetry Prize. You can order her chapbook from Finishing Line Press or request it directly from her. She lives in Petaluma, works for the public library at the Santa Rosa branch, main library, and catches honeybee swarms in spring. For more information, visit her website at RebeccaPatrascu.com. Without further ado, please welcome Rebecca.
Thanks, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for asking me to do this. I love this poetry series. It's been going on for years. And I want to put a shout out to Aqus Cafe that usually hosts it. I had lunch from Aqus today. It was very good. So they've still got great food that they're serving, outside seating and takeaway. So thanks to Aqus. I'm going to read about a dozen things. Some of them are short, so it's a finite amount. And thanks everybody for being here. It's so fun to see all these different people from different parts of my life visiting. I'm going to start with the sort of only COVID poem I have for the night. And it's modeled after Dean Young's poem, New Restrictions. It's called As the Sign Says. It doesn't matter if you were stung once on your right foot by a jellyfish or bitten 3 times by a wasp or are allergic to cantaloupe, or if the fuzz on kiwi skin disturbs you because it feels like the upper lip of the boy who kissed you in the confused horror of the 8th grade dance, or makes you remember the scree that was 8th grade itself when you could almost shave and fumble to kiss with a girl whose lip gloss smelled like cherry and almond and yes, maybe, yes, or whether you never sat overlooking the rooftops of Mykonos, above houses stacked like salt blocks, to drink coffee poured from a briki and eat fresh baklava before having ill-advised sex, or you stopped speaking to your sister and never looked back, or your post has 91 likes, or you might have skin cancer, or your photos are all sorted, or you dreamt your mind eroded like a flower carved in sandstone after centuries of wind, or you won a Pershkop Prize, or you bowled a perfect game, or can't knit to save your life, or have switched to keto, meditate infrequently, speak Portuguese, or sing alto to the flower duet in Lakme, or saved a man with CPR, or sound of baby's first laugh, or honey on the comb, you must stand 6 feet apart. And I'm going to read, thank you, only one thing I think from my chapbook, Before Noon. It's one that people sometimes ask for, and the older I get, the less scandalous this is. So I wrote it a while back. I am in love with old men. Not just the idea of old men, the men themselves, stooped, faded, mottled skin loose at the elbows like a sweater I can't throw away. The shorter, the better. You don't have to tell me they once stood tall, that before they began making bargains with gravity and solid ground, they strode like Paul Bunyan over the land. I want to swim in their summer memories. Men whose palsied hands once knew seamen's knots, whittled burls into ducks. Second-guessing death has worn them down, left them easily confused. But these were engineers who drew the world the way they saw it, and only gave up the booze and cigarettes under duress. Erstwhile Joves, each one thundering with passion for a well-turned calf, undone by love and other sins, and I love them, with their coughs and canes, their rheumy eyes and yellowed teeth, each nodding man who waits on a bench for the bus to come. Does he know how close he is to having me stop for him instead? All those cow-licked boys, long before I was born, hoarding tadpoles and algae in paper cups, who once on a dare burned something alive with a glass in the sun. I actually had a request. So I'm going to read something that someone requested. Thank you for requesting it, person who I shall not name. But it's called Stenography, and it's a little bit of a lesson and a little bit of a look at nature. Stenography. Omit the daffodils, because isn't sentiment a form of manipulation? Likewise, the claret splashed finches chittering at the feeder. Strike out representations of hope. All metaphors are shorthand, and shorthand itself a metaphor for skills rendered moot by progress. In 4th century Greece, a scribe showed consonants as blips with nib and chisel tip, suggesting hiccups or an extra cup of mead, and we call it tachygraphy. The ancient Egyptians used hieratic script, ligatures binding letters into a single glyph, like the fairy writing that filled our daughter's notebooks before she could read. For Greg, it's all about the strokes, up or down, vowels both as they were and altered, pages of worm tracks in the sand written to oneself for later transmutation. Pepys composed his diary using Thomas Shelton's system, which in turn employs abugida, vowels hitched to consonants, as in a Brahmi or Ge'ez script. It's only cipher until you know it. Emojis are shorthand to say, please understand me. Because who writes letters now? Who writes in cursive when pressure or messiness reveal the author's state of mind? If falling leaves are shorthand for the indrawn breath, the buds on the mulberry are exhalation, and red of housefinch chest shorthand for available. Instead of the obvious bulbs, then a carpet of oxalis will do. Then poppies rising under that, and borage where it will. Sun starting early and lasting, and damn it, after all, the daffodils. The hope we permit ourselves, as bright and obvious as seals of wax on all those letters waiting to be sent. I should say that my uncle and aunt who are in the audience do write longhand letters. Thank you for those. Here's a shorter thing for spring. Against herbicides. In my backyard, a mosh pit of weeds says, "Fuck you, planned garden." Sharp with barbs meant to propagate, and I am resurrected every single spring, every year, as though for the first time, into love for everything, into lying down in chaos and suckling the green. Can you guys hear me okay? I guess text me if you can't. This next one, which is Stamina, just came out in the Bracken online journal, which is a really beautiful journal. I'm so happy to be there. So I wrote it long before the current events, but it somehow fits. Stamina. It's a staying game, my love, and the sky will stay. Blue or gray, seen by eyes other than our eyes. Black canopy of night, pinholed by light or cloaked in cloud, shroud of the still living world. The sea will stay, singing its chorus of take this, to the land as it pounds it into sand, pounds stone into glass, stating a case it won long ago. The land, the stone and sand will stay, more or less where we leave them, even if inclined to slide or pitch, minding the laws of gravity, which will also remain. After the mere idea of law is gone, entropy and the speed of light carrying on without audience, playing tag with the smaller lives that are left. House sparrows and houseflies, but no houses. Kiteless wind, wind-sown wheat. Chairs for a time and silos for longer, but beetles and grunions before and after. The sound of seals, but none to label it laughter. No language, but the long tongue of manzanita bark, stripping in the heat of the sun. The sun, the moon, pulling at the fishwife sea, mountains and rivers, gorges, where dark birds dive unimpeded. The perfect tunnels of earthworms, scars in the grass scored by the hooves of deer. Deer, my dear, and all the lesser creatures without anyone to rank them lesser. The Great Barrier Reef and the Black Sea having slipped out of their adjectives. You will be gone, my love, and I will be gone. Our acts and omissions will not matter, because martyr comes from witness and blessings require blood, but grace is sufficient unto ephemera. And by now, you know, this keeps me going, knowing it will all someday be gone. Even the memory of memory disappearing like a green flash behind an unattested horizon. Thanks. So do some shorter ones here. I was adopted, and I'm so blessed to have met my birth mom's family, my birth dad's family, and have been welcomed in by them. Ended up with the best possible story. This is called Alternatives from my birth mother. You wouldn't hold me when I was born, lest love override your resolve. It wasn't a question of ethics or pride, but the rendering of choices. Your mother's vow, if you kept me, it was the rest of the family you'd lose. She was resolute. You were 17. I was the better loss to choose. And this next one is called Nephrectomy, which is the removal of a kidney. And it has an epigraph. The wound is the place where the light enters you, Rumi. They sliced 4 strategic slits, used a net, fished it out. While I slept, I gave up its delicate flesh. No scales, no eyes, just skin, sheenful from my inland sea, and lines severed and clamped. Plundered with permission, placed in a bowl, whisked down to hall, stitched into him. A spare to nestle below his original 2, already working before he awoke. I'm sure at first I carried a gap, until its neighbors slid close to take up the slack. It was a piece, then it was a whole, then its absence was taken for granted. But I thought again today of that place where something used to be. Thought not of nature abhorring a vacuum, but what leans in given room. I thought of all that we cannot name, congregating to keep us alive, a conflagration of fireflies. Where are your holes? What are they waiting for? Before every spark there is darkness, then the flames, then the gleaming that draws the moths. So my friend, who is a poet, said there aren't enough poems about long marriages. There's poems about first love, there's poems about last love and tragic love and happy love. This one's called 29th Wedding Anniversary. The most intimate we will be today is when you ask me to check a mole on your back that you accidentally scratched last night. You will reach your arm behind you, elbow splayed, to feel where you think it is, and I will peer close to see the shape of it, how much damage was done. I'll touch it softly, tell you, it's all right. Just leave it alone and you'll be fine. I should say that's dedicated to my husband, whom I love. So this one, I should also give a shout out of thanks to all the people who are here and who aren't here who support my work with critiques in my poetry groups. Thanks, guys. This is a poem a little bit about those gaps in your knowledge, you know, the things that you think you should probably know, but you don't know. It's called Primer. If ordering planets were my job, we'd have incinerated long ago. For years, I thought us closest to the sun. It must have been one of the days I missed, like when they taught 7 times 8, a sly product that slips from one figure to another, though I am so near it now in age, I think. I can taste the iron of it, the old penny and rust. I know the number of bones in the neck of a giraffe equals those in the neck of a woman. But chemistry is arcane to me. Unlike the drug of foreign tongues, the buzz of huddling with Virgil in the stacks, humming his extended track about arms and men, all those sweet rows of declensions ready to harvest. I took enough math to count feet, to plot a line between then and a point in the future, which I see now is here, and I am surprised to be happy sitting on that dot. I can't grasp the size of the universe, but they say diamonds rain on Neptune. And this morning, a kestrel flew at me straight as an arrow, head height, almost not pulling up in time. I used to rue the requisition of sleep, how it subsumes consciousness, and I have long dreaded company, other people, fraught with needs I thought I could not meet. The touch of hand on skin, how non-essential, apt to falter in confusion, mess, and want, how I thought, how I was certain, in the guilt-appointed coach of my ignorance. So much I never understood, so much I feared for so long, turns out to be like this thread-waisted wasp, digging its hole in the dirt, a flame in its quickness, and they tell me beneficial. I've got 3 more. This one's short. Forensic examination. Here is a doll and a globe. Point me to where the world touched you. So this is your penultimate poem warning. 2 more. I've got a friend who is here, I think, who goes to cemeteries and takes pictures and of really cool things. And I've gotten the chance to go on a walk a couple times with him there. And this poem came out of one of those walks. Cemetery. As we walk the tongue-tied rows, I think of them, you, me, how we are, each of us, emigres from a body, each a body that passed first through a border of flesh into air, obedient out the gate to the laws of physics. All the grass blades hum together the canticle the flower chanted before it was cut, the song the ciliates still sing in the stale water turning green from bloated stems. Catalog of stone in a ramshackle library, tomes of biographies, citations detailing decay. Some hold the gloss of a photo of the departed, frozen face and the dated hair, awkward for a few decades until old enough to be quaint. They came into a land of downward slopes without a plan and left great marks, or none, or only fingerprints. Maybe it's the archivist in me that is so happy among the names and dates. Or maybe it's because it is so quiet here, with only the distant backhoe motor, the robin's tumble of notes. Thank you. I have one more, and I can't do a poetry reading without acknowledging my obsession with the Welsh country and history and language. And I was lucky enough to go there in 2013 with some of the people present. That was a Terry trip. Thank you, Terry. And this is called Adit, A-D-I-T, which means it's the opening to a hole, to a mine, or to a shaft. Adit. And once you have seen an adit, how can you not enter? I myself am 1 foot in it, summoned by the language my body longs for like its favorite bed. There is always a blackbird in the old songs, carrying a message to the distant beloved. There is the moon and a stone cottage, and always there is the sea. Often there's the tree underneath which a lover will have his grave. He might have harp or horse, or he might only have the sea, the moon, and the bird. The adit is mine mouth, the dark hole in the hillside, within which sleeps a king who will awaken blessed or mad. I'm not looking for the king. The sea is behind me. The blackbirds won't fly into the darkness, and my candle is tallow for want of wax. But the language is upon my tongue. It fills my ears and will not be denied. I go, O ran agrath, as to the womb I go. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
That was wonderful, Rebecca.
Thanks, Phyllis.
Really lovely reading. Thank you.
What imagery.
You can all unmute yourselves. Feel free.